G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/Am I the A-hole? Let's go. Am I the A-hole? Coworker's cultural food smells up office, she blasts me on socials for being racist. So I have a Korean coworker who was adopted when she was a baby by the whitest people I have ever met. I'm Hispanic and adopted also by the whitest people ever, so we, I guess, coworker bonded over it at first. She talks about her heritage though, as if she was raised Korean and pretends that she doesn't have white parents, which I don't understand, but to each their own. So this coworker is constantly bringing Korean food into the office that smells so intense or bad, the entire office smells for the rest of the day. I have a sensitive stomach with smells and cannot handle it constantly. We also work in an extremely small office space, so this isn't space where I can ask to move desks or I'm bothered by some faint smell in the distance. Now, I wouldn't have an issue if it was once in a while or even once a week, but it's making me physically ill at my desk every day for months now. I really cannot emphasize enough that it's not the smell of intense seasonings or ingredients that is turning my stomach, but it actually smells like expired bad food. Yesterday was the worst. I couldn't take it anymore. I politely apologized and asked her if she could maybe consider eating it in the break room because my stomach couldn't handle the smells. I would ask the same if our buddy Sam was bringing tuna sandwiches in. I think I said I'm sorry 10 plus times in the process of asking because I know she's sensitive about it. She got quiet and threw out her food. Again, I apologized 100 times, but now the food was in the trash can next to my desk and it was deadly the whole day. I actually had to ask if I could go home an hour early, and she made an off remark that I didn't have to pretend to be sick, she wouldn't bring her culture to work again. I assumed things would be tense, but I woke up this morning to a bunch of posts on her social media dragging me by name as a racist. She went as far as calling me a white supremacist in one, and said that I told her that she wasn't allowed to eat anything non-American in the office, as it offended me. That is not what happened at all. My boss even said that we have to have a meeting this afternoon regarding issues with coworkers, which this is obviously it. And now I'm terrified that I'm going to be fired for being racist. I tried to apologize to her and tell her that there may have been a misunderstanding, but she cried about how insulting her cultural food was the deepest racist attack that she has ever experienced, and she doesn't feel safe working with me anymore. My other coworker, previously mentioned Sam, said that my comparison to him bringing tuna wasn't the same because it has nothing to do with his heritage. He said that maybe my nausea is really some repressed racism. I don't even know how to process all of this. I genuinely feel like I'm losing my mind. I didn't mean to offend anyone, let alone this badly. Reddit, am I the butthole? In the comments, suppressed racism sickness. Ah yes, a common problem. What in the F? You are not the butthole. I would definitely drop HR a message ASAP before she decides to do so herself. Other than that, be polite and civil, then proceed to ignore her best as you can. Responding will only fuel the flames, unfortunately. P.S. How does she pretend her parents are Korean? Just curious more than anything. And OP replies, honestly, the way they were talking about me being racist, I was Googling if subconsciously I could get physically ill from it. You ever just meet people who make you question your sanity because of how serious and genuinely angry they are? And we don't actually have an HR department, just the manager who clearly already knows. Meeting's around 3, so we'll see how it goes. But at this point, she is so up in arms about me being a racist, I don't know if manager would even want to deal with the backlash. As far as pretending her parents are Korean, it's not that she acts as if they are, but she talks constantly about her birth parents as if they are her parents, and talks about Korea as if she was raised there. I mean, that's all she talks about really. My mom and dad were Buddhists, so I keep their stuff with me. And her desk is covered in spiritual stuff from them, but it's all stuff that she bought. Her actual mum and dad, who have come to the office before, are so sweet and nice, and she acts friendly to them but calls them by first name basis. Mind you, this is a 26-year-old who never met her birth parents, was adopted around 1 year old, and has never been back to Korea since. Basically, she talks as if her parents are Korean immigrants and she was raised by them with their culture, while the sweet couple who raised and spoiled her, she pretends doesn't exist. Not the a-hole. Also, if you haven't already, get screenshots of her posts on social media, especially if they actually mention your name or are easily shown to be aimed at you. That is literally libel and may violate some office policy. While you're not overall the butthole, this is not the commentary that I would lead with in defending yourself. The documentation on the difficulties and often, even unintentional racism international adoptees experience in the US is compelling, and, well, there is a lot of it. You don't know what this girl has gone through, but it's safe to bet that she does not view her adoptive family as her real family, regardless of whether or not they are nice. OP replies, "I'm sorry, I need a damn copy-paste since I've been going crazy trying to clarify. I only mentioned that because my original post, which exceeded character limits and I had to backspace a bunch, quoted stuff that she was saying on social media, which included emphasizing how I not only insulted her, but her entire Korean family and parents for teaching her to cook that way. She told me about how she doesn't know her birth parents and never spoke to them, and they gave her up when she was not even 1, so how can I possibly be insulting her Korean parents for teaching her how to cook? There was context there originally that had nothing to do with the food." Gotcha. I'd still be very careful about my word choices when I explain this situation. Less is more, and absolutely no commentary on her heritage, adoption, birth parents, or Korean food. Just strong-smelling food was making me queasy. I didn't want to hurt feelings as I'm sure it's delicious, but the office is just so small. That's why I never bring in tuna fish sandwiches. And OP says, "Oh gosh, I would never mention that in the meeting. I only said it here because of the context of what she was saying on social media. I plan to emphasize strong-smelling food, and that's it, which is what I originally did with her even. I do fully intend, however, to bring up what she's saying on social media and how none of these things ever happened and that it needs to be taken down." And now, on to the update. The meeting was gold, and I have to start with my favorite part. The food wasn't Korean. It was indeed, as suspected, fettuccine alfredo. That's right, y'all are mad at me for finding Korean food smelling bad, and it wasn't even Korean. This unhinged woman's lies know no limits. So to start, she came in the morning and went straight to the manager's office. She told him all these racist things that I said about her food and such, and was crying in hysterics, like absolute hysterics. My manager came out after, asked for the meeting, then went back over the past few hours, and watched every interaction that we had together over the last day and a half. We have security cameras in the office due to working with some sensitive information. What we say and to who on the phone can legally matter a lot, so we all should know we are being watched, but maybe Coworker thought that was a lie? Forgot? Who knows? Lo and behold though, I didn't say or do anything racist, and was only asking her to follow rules insanely politely. Moreover, when he watched me leave the office yesterday, he watched me say goodbye to everyone, and apparently right after I left, Sam started asking the coworker about the food, saying she told him she was making fettuccine alfredo and that it didn't look Korean, and the idiot confirmed. Apparently, she thought that I was assuming it was Korean because of how she looks and that I was being racist. She assumed, because she looks Korean, that me asking her to eat in the break room was an insult to Korean food and decided to just lie around that assumption. The most unhinged crap I have ever heard in my entire life. I don't know who to be more mad at. My 3 coworkers who didn't tell me the crap was cheesy noodles, the culprit for lying this goddamn badly, or Sam for knowing and gaslighting me so badly that I thought I was going crazy. My boss, thank God, was extremely chill about it with me, and we ended up shooting the crap for a short bit of time about some nerd stuff, and he told me that she's being put on 2 weeks leave while he and the owner figure out how to fire her without her trying to sue and to try and relax a bit. He also already had screenshots of her socials, and the company will be threatening legal action if she doesn't take it down. However, he did advise me, as many of you guys did, to consider a lawyer or restraining order just because the entire thing is so unhinged. So basically, I'm not freaking crazy as much as I felt like it all damn day. Fettuccine effing Alfredo. In the comments, random anecdote, but on the flight back home from Korea, we had the people selling kimchi at the airport double bagging the kimchi and flight attendants constantly reminding everyone not to snack on kimchi on the flight. Situations like these always frustrate me when there are team members who blatantly agree with you, in this case, OP, yet say absolutely nothing, even when a lie is revealed, even when this coworker makes them all uneasy. I'm sure this isn't over, but at the same time, with the coworker's lie revealed, she might just decide to leave and take her rancid food with her. OP mentioned that basically the whole office walks on eggshells around this woman, so maybe those coworkers didn't want to get involved and have their asses dragged through the mud, being accused of enabling racism or some crap. Dude, when I read the first post about OP going on and on about the adoption and Korean background, I thought they were a day-to-day butthole on Am I the A-hole who were actually guilty but painting a good picture for the internet to say that they are the good guys. After the update, I understand they are just so freaking nervous and freaked out that they don't know which details are relevant or not, because they don't know what they said that could offend her that bad. I'm sure there were some commenters in the original post who were just as judgmental as me when they read the post. I knew where she was coming from. I have a very white relative who adopted a child from Asia and now thinks they are all Asian. Not just keeping him in touch with his culture, but literally everything they do and say is related to his country. Opposite of what is happening with this girl, but yet very similar. Our next post is titled, Am I the a-hole for responding to my father's request for a relationship with a detailed PowerPoint on why he will never be forgiven? If I'm the a-hole here, I'll own it. I'm not sorry, but it would be good to know because the rest of my family thinks this went too far. My mum died when I was 7 from leukemia. I have very few memories of her from before she was sick, and I didn't get to spend a lot of time with her in her last year, but she was an artist, and until she couldn't anymore, she would make me these little collages when she was in the hospital with drawings and photos and messages for me. My grandmother put them all in a book for me after she died. I wanted to be like my mum, and my counselor thought that it would help, so I started a journal where I would do kind of a similar thing, and I've done at least 1 page a week all these years, ever since my mum died. More when I miss her or have something hard going on. So I have a kind of a unique record of my mental state over the last 16 years. My father remarried when I was 9. My stepmother really leaned hard into the "I'm your mum now," and my father did not stop her. It improved when they had my half-brother because she basically forgot about me then. Unfortunately, he got cancer when he was 3, and I pretty much ceased to exist for my father. He was either working or gone with my brother, and I spent all my teen years mostly at home alone or with my grandparents. The mantra was that my brother needed to be the focus because he might die, so I needed to not be selfish since I was healthy. I stopped trying to talk to him when I was 16, and it was a dark time. I moved out when I was 18, and I cut them off completely. My grandparents let me know that my brother died a couple of years ago, but respected my desire to remain no contact with my father. He recently reached out to them because he wants to see me and talk. I went through my old journals and made him a PowerPoint with images of the entries where I had talked about being frustrated and feeling abandoned and unwanted, some with literal quotes of things my dad had said to me during arguments. Even the really dark stuff from when I was seriously depressed. Then I ended it with a photo of one of my mum's collages, where she had written, "Remember that your dad and I are always here from you," and I wrote, "You failed, go away," underneath. I felt like him being able to see it from my literal perspective would communicate why I don't want him back better than I could. Evidently it worked, but a little too well, because I've been bombarded by family telling me that it's understandable that I don't want to see him, but what I sent gutted him, and he's completely fallen apart after reading through it, and it was unnecessarily cruel. Maybe it was. I know my bar for that is kind of weird sometimes, so am I the a-hole? Edit, a couple of follow-up notes since it came up in the comments. 1. I loved my brother. I don't resent him. He was a good kid, and I wish that he was still with us. None of this is his fault. To me, it is completely my father's, and to a lesser extent, stepmother's. The parents prevented me from spending time with him as he got sicker, so I wouldn't have been allowed to be there for him even if I had been able to, which I wasn't towards the end, because I was also struggling to stay alive. 2. I have empathy. I understand what my father lost. I was there. I also lost those same people, plus effectively my father. Even so, to me, there is no excuse for completely shutting your own kid completely out of your life while also preventing them from getting any kind of help. I understand depression and freezing up. I've been there, and I still, even not being an adult, managed to consider the impact of my behavior on other people. If he was that bad off, he should have given me up to be raised by someone else. My mum's parents asked, and he wouldn't agree to let me stay with them full time. I could have had a dad that was able to occasionally tell me he loved me, even if it was just a text message. Alternatively, I could have lived with my grandparents and had people around me who cared about me every day, even if it wasn't my father. I got neither, and every request for help of any kind was met with "suck it up." I can empathize with having to function while breaking down inside, but I can't empathize with what he did. 3. I gather from relatives, who have backed off after some hard boundary setting, that my father and stepmother split not long ago and are in divorce proceedings, which is why he reached out now and why the rest of the family was upset with how I responded at the time. He wasn't in a good place already. I've told them that if they care about him, to encourage him to keep away from me, refuse to pass on any messages, and try to get him into inpatient care or something if they are that worried that he's going to do something rash. I don't want anything to do with him, and I've told them that I don't want to hear about anything that happens after this point. But the rest of his family love him, so for their sake, I do hope that he pulls himself together. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the butthole. I'm sure it was extremely hard to read, especially after losing another kid. Not gonna lie, there was some really dark feelings in there, and I'm sure knowing he was a part of causing that could be traumatic, so maybe I just traumatized him back. Maybe deserved, maybe not, I don't know. In the comments, not the a-hole. I have a saying, if the truth about your conduct paints you in a bad light, the problem isn't with the truth, it's with your conduct. If the truth hurts your dad, it's his own to deal with and not on you. Not the a-hole in the slightest. You told your dad how you felt, and it made him have to confront his failures as a parent. It is not your fault he neglected you. He is upset because he knows what you put in the PowerPoint is the reality of how he treated you when you were just a child. Now that the truth is out and you have re-established no contact, I hope you were able to let go of some of the anger that you have at him and know that you did nothing to cause how he treated you. I'm no contact with my dad and have been able to find a lot of peace in the life that I have built without him. I hope the same for you. The detailed evidence of his failure is exactly what has him so upset. He could downplay and gaslight when it was just someone saying that it happened, but OP brought receipts. He can't downplay OP's exact quotes, and so he has to actually acknowledge how much and how badly he screwed up. Boo-hoo. No sympathy at all. It was unnecessarily cruel of him to completely abandon and ignore you when your half-brother got sick. You already lost your mum. You would lose your brother too, but he didn't think that you needed any support or help? Not the a-hole. Absolutely. Where were the flying monkeys when you left home, when your father didn't try to contact you, when you had your personal triumphs and tragedies? They seriously are supporting a man who abandoned his oldest child, and when said offspring gives clear and concise reasons why they cut their contact, their response is, "Why are you being so mean right now?" What? And now, on to the update. A bunch of people have been asking for an update, so I'm doing it here instead of on the main sub because the original blew up more than I want to deal with again. I had a talk with my paternal grandparents over Christmas vacation and showed them the PowerPoint. They had no idea that things were as bad as they were, or that I was actively suicidal at the time, and the accidents that I had as a teen were not really accidents. So while they think that it was still dangerously harsh under the circumstances, they understand better where I'm coming from, admit that my father messed up big time, and that the family should have been more involved with me instead of just supporting him and my brother. They said that on the surface they thought that I was fine and just having trouble adjusting, but if they had known about the things described in the journal, they would have insisted my father get help. They do want me to reconcile with him, but they understand why it might be too late for that, so they've agreed not to bring him up unless I do first, and not pass on information either way. So that was actually productive. As for my father, I know a lot of people think that I'll regret it if I don't reconcile, forgive, or whatever, but I'm not so sure that's true. I've tried to imagine a conversation with him that wouldn't make things worse, and I can't. Best case scenario, he's sorry and has a good grovel, but honestly I think hearing that would just make me hate him more. Worst case scenario, nothing has really changed and I have to walk away before I end up with an assault charge. I also just can't imagine any real benefit or function to having him in my life, so reconnecting seems like a lot of work for no gain. As far as forgiveness, I don't know if that's actually possible. Apathy, maybe. As far as I know, he's alive. I've made it super clear that anyone who tries to give me information about him that I don't request will also get the chop, so I'm probably not going to get any further updates. I'd rather just go back to forgetting that he exists. For me, I'm probably as fine as I'm going to be. I have therapy and meds. I can pass for a functional human most of the time. My deal with myself is that I have to at least stick around until my maternal grandparents pass so they don't hurt and I can wrap things up for them. So in the meantime, I'm working on finding other raison d'etre. I don't know, how do you say that? It's French. Spite, possibly. In the comments, I screwed up and met my dad 20 plus years after he dipped out of my life. I was maybe 11 or 12 at the time. His third or fourth wife had contacted me thinking this would be great for the both of us. I went multiple states away to visit him. Anyways, he's pretty sorry for himself, blah blah blah. And after a while I thought, crap, I could have been dead for decades and this guy wouldn't have known. Then I thought about how he actually wasn't doing any of the heavy lifting on this relationship. It was his wife trying to make him less depressed or something, so I went ahead and just dipped out. I missed the idea of having a dad, but ultimately, I wasn't that interested in it after so long. I don't know why I'm sharing this story, never have before. I hope the OP finds peace. Her father will just have to live with the consequences of his actions. I think the most powerful part of her post was how she compared the way her mother reached out and tried to show her love despite dying in a hospital versus her father who was healthy, with a tough situation but healthy, couldn't even be bothered to acknowledge her. He had his chance to be her father, and he chose not to. My mother was very sick growing up and in and out of the hospital. She made every effort to let me and my brother know that we were loved. And so did my father. He spent every non-working moment by her bedside, but he had us with him. And when we had to go home at night to sleep, he would cook for us and talk to us to help us through it. We went to therapy. He was going through a massive loss. The love of his life was dying. He was becoming a single parent, and he leaned into it the best he could, as did my mother. That is parenthood. Parenthood is never abandoning any child for any reason at any time. OP's sperm donor wasn't a father then, he doesn't deserve to be a father now. And that's where I'm going to end today's story, guys. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.